Welcome to Second Listen Saturday on the Parenting Roundabout podcast, where we share some fun moments from a past episode for your weekend listening pleasure. Look for new episodes every Monday through Friday.
So I just came back from a good friend's son's bar mitzvah, and it was a lot of fun, but it really struck me how, like, modern family things have gotten for her. Because attending this event, there were divorced parents with their new partners, including gay and straight partners, those partners' kids. There were families with kids and parents of different races. There was a sister-in-law who hasn't been actually married into the family for like 20 years. But, you know, she was there and so on. So I'm just wondering if that's what your family is starting to look like. I mean, me personally, it's not so much like that. Although, you know, there's some little quirks, like I would say I'm closer to, you know, my mother's cousin than I am, or one of her many, many cousins, than I am to my half siblings. You know, like there's little tweaks like that. But for the most part, it's fairly traditional. What's going on in your family, Terry?
I feel like I had that years and years ago before it was
cool.
I think I may have talked about this on the podcast before. I don't know. My dad was married before he was married to my mom, and I have a half-sister who is, I think she turned 18 the summer I was born. So she went off to college shortly after I came home from the hospital. And so I never really had that close a relationship with her because she wasn't living in the house.
Right.
But we did have this sort of odd thing with my dad's first wife's sister was very, very sweet to my mom and me and would have us over and was really nice. And that was like, this is a relationship that would be difficult to explain.
Yes.
You know, I called her aunt, but she was no relation to me, but she could not have been nicer. So there was this whole sort of unusual situation for me when I was growing up. We had a not typical family structure. But now, we're pretty to the extent that I am connected with extended family, it's pretty homogenous, I think.
How about you, Nicole?
Interesting. My mom's side is very cookie cutter. You know, aunts, uncles, the same spouses that they've had for 40 years. No remarriages. Cousins, pretty much the same. My dad's side of the family is a whole other story. It's a very modern type of family, right, with various cultures and backgrounds and relationships and but it's small. Both sides are small, so there's not a lot of extended people to make up the family unit. So, yeah, I've had more to do with my mom's side of the family, though. My dad's side of the family is they are very how do you call it? Their lifestyle is very different to ours. So,
well, and you also, I mean, right now you're living in a different country from almost everyone. But you also had an element of that when you were growing up too, right? Because a lot of your mom's family was not in Canada.
Yeah, I didn't grow up near any extended family. I grew up, my dad's side of the family was all on the west coast of Canada in the Vancouver area. And I grew up north of Toronto, which is in central Canada. And then my mom's family is all in Australia. So I think I probably saw my grandparents and cousins maybe once every 5-6 years.
Right.
It was the interaction was very limited. And of course, in those days, you really only communicated by letter, and phone calls were non-existent because it was usually like $1 million a minute. So, so we didn't have a lot of connection. I feel like these days, my daughter, she's met some of the Australian family, and her and some of the second, third cousins keep in contact over social media, which is really cool because I didn't, that wasn't an option for us growing up.
Yeah.
So I think it makes her feel more connected to
Right.
family unit. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, I had extended family, walking distance, and we, at least on my mom's side, we had, I had an aunt and uncle and a cousin and my grandmother who were all living where we lived and right in our neighborhood. And my husband had the same thing. He had even more. I mean, he grew up with his grandmother, with his grandmother in his house, his aunt and uncle living right next door actually in a twin house. Other aunts and uncles and cousins down the street, they were everywhere. So I think he misses that, I mean, we definitely don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was growing up, we had a pretty small family, but we had a bunch of cousins. It was my dad's cousin and her family and her children's children. And they would come over twice a year. I think we would see them at Thanksgiving and at Christmas, maybe Easter. No, and maybe it was Easter and Christmas. Anyway, at holidays, we would see them. And then in between, we wouldn't see them at all. They didn't live that far away, but we didn't interact that much. Mm-hmm. But I remember the holidays as being a big deal, and we had them over, and there was quite a number of them, and that was fun. But I never had that experience of a day-to-day connection with your grandparent or your cousin. My mother's family, I grew up in Los Angeles area. My mother's family was in Chicago area. And my dad's parents were both deceased before, well, maybe not before I was born, but before I would remember. Mm-hmm. And so I never really my mom and I would take the train to Chicago every other year and spend a couple of weeks with her parents. So I would get a little bit of experience of them and my aunt and cousin who lived there too. But I really it seemed kind of idyllic to have this built-in friendship with cousins. Mm-hmm. But that was not part of my growing up. Mm-hmm. And maybe just as well. Maybe, family feuds would have been part of it too. Just live in our little...
Yeah, I always kind of wondered if my dad was okay with the fact that, he basically spent every single Christmas and holiday with my mom's family because they lived there and we never went. And, we never went away for Thanksgiving or Easter or Christmas. Everybody just came to us because we were right there. So, he seemed okay with it, but either he was really good at faking it or...
Well, sometimes, it depends on what your relationship is with your family. Sometimes it's nice not to have that drama, if... probably the less said, the better on that. The family that came over when I was a kid, it was relatively drama-free, maybe because it was a little bit removed. It wasn't, it was cousins and children of cousins as opposed to grandparents and siblings. So
well, and also it wasn't like a daily thing, right?
Yes.
It was... Yes. Reserved for special occasions.
And also all the adults got really drunk pretty quick, so so we kids could pretty much do whatever we wanted. So it was fun.
So how about now? Is it important to you that your kids have relationships with extended family? Or are you more of a friends are our family kind of group? I know, Nicole, you mentioned that it's nice that your daughter can be connected with some of her faraway cousins.
Yeah, I think there's extended family that would be nice to have around and have closer. But just growing up the way I did, because my mom came to Canada when she was 20, met my dad, she stayed here. So all of her family was in Australia, rarely came over here. And then my dad didn't live near his family. So we grew up very much the four of us, and our family friends were our family. Mm-hmm. We would spend Christmases and Easters and all that kind of stuff with friends. So I think so. We have a bit of a mix of that now too, because we find ourselves in a similar situation than what my parents did now that we live here in the U.S.
Right.
And so we generally, reach out to friends, and they're part of our special events. So, I don't know. I guess I like the idea of having lived near family and grown up near family and cousins and whatnot, but I don't know. I'm so used to this way.
Right.
Maybe we drive nuts. I don't know. My husband's very much the same way. His family is all in Hungary, like both sides.
Wow.
He has outside of his immediate family members, he has no other relatives in North America.
Mm-hmm.
So he also grew up that way as well, which is kind of interesting. And so, both of us are pretty content to just islands unto ourselves.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah. Well, the extended family on my side is all on the West Coast at this point, and it might as well be Hungary for as much as I keep in touch. I am just terrible, and I don't think it's deliberate. I think it's just, for so long, my life has been pretty much put one foot in front of the other and deal with the stuff that's immediately in front of you. Mm-hmm. And I never can seem to get past that to, the more distant things that I would like to do. I've been just a terrible sister and niece and aunt to people on my side of the family. And I know it, and I know I should do something about it, but there's always some much more immediate thing that needs to be tended to, which is not a good excuse, but just the way it is.
It's just life.
It just, I don't quite know what to do about it. So I don't think any of them listen to this podcast, but if they do, hey,
I'm sorry.
Sorry I haven't been in touch. And on my husband's side of the family, his siblings live not that far away. They used to have a brother who lived in town, and we used to see him and his family all the time. And then they moved to the next state over, which isn't prohibitively far, and we still see them from time to time, but it's not the same. Mm-hmm. They're not going to the same schools. They're not, able to drop by. I'm not able to just drop a kid there if I need somebody to be someplace. Mm-hmm. I miss that. That was nice. Yeah. And so we still try to get together with them fairly regularly. But, I really see there's a degree to which I wish there was more family closeness, and there's a way in which family closeness feels kind of suffocating, and I'm glad when it's not there. So it's like, I'm happy, no way. And I wish my kids, I would like my kids to have relationships with their cousins. But it's hard when it's not real close. I mean, Facebook helps a lot, but it's not the same as being in the same place and going and doing things together. But that seems to be where we are now. I don't know. Do most people have large extended families nearby?
I feel
the way they used to.
I feel like where I live, there is quite a lot of it. Like people live here and they haven't left. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of people that I know have family. If they're not right here, then they're in state or they're close. And in many ways, I do miss that. Like you said, I don't have family that can help me with kids or quickly drive over or just even to see a hockey game or come to it, whatever. And I know they would love to, a lot of my family, and it doesn't work, just because of everyone's life and where they are. And, so I do kind of miss that. And, my kids only they had the one first cousin on my husband's side. And then, like I mentioned, I have the half siblings and they have cousins there, but they really don't know them very well at all. So,
I really am a big, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, years ago, we even tried to have a third kid so that we would, because my kids didn't have any cousins. and they had one cousin who didn't live nearby, and we kind of knew we were going to be living near family. So we wanted to have another child just for that reason, but it didn't work out. But I mean, my family that isn't here is as involved as they can be, which is really nice. Yeah.
I'm really a big believer in you make your family with your friends. So and especially, as an adoptive family, we don't really lean really hard on the blood relative aspect of it. You can't, we've had family members try to do that, and it's like, stop. Right. So we feel like we're assembling our immediate and our extended family, based on choice and not biology. So we definitely have some very close friends who we can call at any time, if somebody... when my son had a ruptured ulcer and was in the hospital at the middle of the night, and I called my friend out of bed to come drive an hour down to my house to watch my daughter. And, and she said, sure. They jumped in the car. Right. So that's family to me, and we're very, very lucky to have some friends that we can count on that way, which is not to say anything bad about family. It's just to some degree proximity and ability, and I do feel a stronger bond with some people I am not related to than some people I am.
I remember when I was having my son, and I had only lived in this town for a year and didn't have any family, and I was really starting to freak out. Like, what am I going to do with my 2-year-old, with my other child when I need to go have this baby? And then a friend said to me, I'll take her whenever you need me to, because I know what your situation is, and I don't want you to worry about it. So that was awesome.
That's the stuff that's
kind of always been my kind of goal. We've moved around a lot, and I guess just from growing up, relying on ourselves, I've kind of just gotten used to us being, the main kind of support, but then reaching out to other people and creating kind of a network, right? Of people that you can call on or pick up. I always look at those Google emergency cards that you have to fill out.
Oh, yeah.
Was always a gauge of what my situation was.
What am I doing here? Mine is still my friend who took my daughter when I had my baby. So
yeah.
Yeah, we have a nearby friend who I used, and then when her kids went in school, she used me. So that's been nice.
Wow. Well, good. It's interesting to know where people come from, because sometimes you assume that, everybody has all their family around them all the time, and I'm the only one that doesn't. But
well, the most important question about family and friends: can you count on them to listen to your podcast, or do they go, "Oh, that's nice that you do that," and never ask another question?
Pretty much.
And are you glad about that? Because that means you can talk about
it. Which is a good thing.
Yes, sometimes.